The scream cut through the afternoon air like a blade, transforming Riverside Park from a peaceful family gathering into a scene of chaos. Two men had grabbed 8-year-old Lucy Chen near the playground equipment, covering her mouth while they dragged her toward a black sedan, idling by the park entrance. Parents shouted, children cried. Someone fumbled for a phone to call 911. But help was still minutes away, and Lucy would be gone in seconds. That's when Eddie Lawson, the cheerful ice cream truck driver, dropped the rocket pop he was handing to a customer and moved with a precision that belonged in a different world, a world where protecting innocent lives was a matter of national security. Welcome to the Silent Heroes. Before we continue this powerful story of hidden valor and protective instincts, tell us in the comments from which city in the world are you watching this video today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. We're growing every day, and your support helps us honor those who served with distinction. Eddie Lawson had been driving the ice cream truck route through Riverside Park for exactly 2 years, 4 months, and 16 days. Not that he was counting. The routine had simply become as natural as breathing. Every Tuesday through Sunday, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., he'd navigate the tree-lined streets with his cheerful blue truck, its speakers playing the familiar melody that brought children running from blocks away. At 41, Eddie had the kind of face that made parents trust him immediately. Warm brown eyes, an easy smile, and the patient demeanor of someone who genuinely enjoyed making children happy. His ice cream truck was immaculate, painted bright blue with cartoon characters dancing around the sides. Inside, everything was organized with military precision that most customers never noticed. Inventory sorted by type and temperature, cash register balanced to the penny, cleaning supplies stored in exactly the right order. The children of Riverside knew him as Mr. Eddie, the ice cream man who remembered their names and favorite flavors. Katie Morrison always wanted orange creamsicles. The Johnson twins preferred superhero bars, but fought over who got Superman versus Batman. Little Alex Foster couldn't decide between rocket pops and ice cream sandwiches, so Eddie always let him take his time without rushing. What none of them knew was that Gunnery Sergeant Eddie Lawson had spent 12 years in the United States Marine Corps, the final 8 as a diplomatic security driver, protecting American embassy personnel in some of the world's most dangerous locations. His service record, filed away in military archives, documented tours in Baghdad during the surge, Kabul during the heaviest fighting, and Islamabad when threats against American diplomats reached critical levels. Eddie's Purple Heart came from a car bomb in Baghdad that had targeted the convoy he was driving. The blast had flipped his armored vehicle, killed his passenger, a State Department cultural attaché named Janet Wells, and left Eddie with shrapnel wounds and survivor's guilt that still woke him up some nights. Janet had been working on a school construction project, trying to bring education to Iraqi children caught in the crossfire of war. She'd shown Eddie photos of the planned classrooms just minutes before the explosion, her eyes bright with hope for the future. The attack had been carefully planned. Insurgents had studied the convoy route for weeks, noting that Eddie always took the same path to avoid market areas where civilians might be endangered. They'd used his own protective instincts against him, placing the IED exactly where a careful driver would position his vehicle to minimize risk to bystanders. He'd left the Marines in 2022, not from any inability to serve, but from a deep need to do something that brought joy instead of danger. The ice cream truck had seemed almost ridiculous at first, going from protecting diplomats to serving popsicles, but there was something healing about making children smile. It was simple, honest work that let him sleep without wondering if tomorrow would bring another IED or sniper attack. That Tuesday afternoon had started like any other. Eddie arrived at Riverside Park at exactly 2:15 p.m., parking under the large oak tree that provided shade for his truck and created a natural gathering spot for families. Within minutes, the familiar crowd had assembled. Mothers with strollers, fathers pushing swings, children running between playground equipment with the boundless energy of summer vacation. Eddie served his regular customers with practiced efficiency and genuine warmth. He handed out ice cream sandwiches to the Thompson boys, helped 4-year-old Grace choose between a rainbow pop and a chocolate cone, and restocked his freezer with the methodical precision that came naturally after years of military training. At 3:47 p.m., everything changed. Lucy Chen, 8 years old with pigtails and a gap-toothed smile, had been playing on the monkey bars when 2 men approached her. Eddie noticed them immediately, not because they looked obviously dangerous, but because their behavior triggered every warning signal his training had drilled into him. They moved with purpose, but tried to appear casual. They scanned the area while pretending to watch children play. Most telling, they positioned themselves to block escape routes without seeming to coordinate. Eddie's hands continued serving ice cream, but his attention focused entirely on the 2 strangers. One was tall and lean, wearing jeans and a baseball cap pulled low. The other was stockier, with a nervous habit of checking his phone. Both had the kind of awareness that spoke of planning, preparation, and bad intentions. When they grabbed Lucy, Eddie's 12 years of diplomatic protection training kicked in immediately. The little girl's scream pierced the air as the tall man covered her mouth while his partner grabbed her legs. They moved toward the park entrance, where a black sedan sat with its engine running, a classic extraction setup that Eddie had seen before in hostile territory. Other parents froze in shock or fumbled for phones, their civilian minds struggling to process what was happening. Eddie didn't hesitate. He vaulted over the ice cream truck's serving counter with fluid efficiency, his body moving on instincts that had been forged in combat zones, where hesitation meant death. The distance from his truck to the playground was roughly 40 yards, the same distance he'd once sprinted while carrying a wounded ambassador from a burning embassy compound in Kabul. His legs pumped with remembered urgency as he closed the gap between Lucy and her attackers. "Let her go," Eddie shouted, his voice carrying the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed in crisis situations. The stocky kidnapper turned, probably expecting to see a concerned parent or unarmed civilian. Instead, he found himself facing a man whose posture and movement spoke of serious training. Eddie had dropped into a combat stance without thinking about it, balanced on the balls of his feet, hands positioned for either defensive or offensive action, eyes tracking both threats simultaneously. "Walk away, pal," the tall kidnapper snarled, tightening his grip on Lucy. "This ain't your business." Eddie's response was calm, controlled, and absolutely terrifying. "Son, I spent 8 years protecting people in places where men like you don't last 5 minutes. You've got 3 seconds to release that child before this becomes the worst decision you've ever made." The kidnappers hesitated, perhaps recognizing something in Eddie's demeanor that their criminal experience hadn't prepared them for. In that split second of uncertainty, Eddie assessed their positioning, noted the getaway vehicle's distance, and calculated multiple response scenarios with the tactical precision that had kept him alive through countless high-threat situations. That moment of uncertainty was all Eddie needed. He moved with the fluid precision of someone who had disarmed insurgents and neutralized threats in embassy compounds. His first strike disabled the stocky kidnapper's weapon hand, sending the man stumbling backward with a yelp of pain. His second movement freed Lucy from the tall man's grip, pulling her behind him in a protective gesture that was pure muscle memory from diplomatic protection protocols. "Run to your mom," Eddie told Lucy quietly, his eyes never leaving the 2 kidnappers. "Right now." The little girl scrambled toward her mother, who had finally spotted the commotion and was running toward them with terror in her eyes. Eddie positioned himself between Lucy's escape route and the 2 men, his stance radiating the kind of controlled violence that made smart criminals reconsider their life choices. The tall kidnapper pulled a knife, apparently deciding that intimidation might still work. Eddie looked at the blade with the calm assessment of someone who had faced much worse weapons in much more dangerous situations. "You sure you want to do that?" Eddie asked conversationally. "Because I've been stabbed before, shot at more times than I can count, and had bombs dropped on my convoy. A pocket knife doesn't really move the fear meter much." By now, other parents had called 911 and were evacuating children from the immediate area. The kidnappers found themselves trapped between an ice cream vendor, who fought like a special forces operator, and a growing crowd of witnesses with cell phone cameras. They ran. Eddie didn't pursue. His job was protection, not apprehension, and Lucy was safe. He watched them flee toward their getaway vehicle, memorizing license plate numbers and physical descriptions with the automatic precision of someone trained in intelligence gathering. Police arrived 7 minutes later to find Eddie calmly serving ice cream to a line of children, as if neutralizing kidnappers was just another part of his afternoon routine. Lucy sat on a park bench with her mother, clutching a free rocket pop and telling anyone who would listen about how Mr. Eddie had saved her from the bad men. Detective Maria Castellanos took Eddie's statement with growing amazement. His description of the suspects was detailed and precise. His timeline of events was accurate to the minute, and his tactical assessment of the situation read like a professional security report. "Mr. Lawson," she said after reviewing his account, "your response was remarkably professional. Do you have law enforcement or military background?" Eddie looked across the park, where children were playing again, their laughter mixing with the distant melody from his ice cream truck. "Marine Corps," he said simply. "Diplomatic security, 12 years. "What made you leave?" Detective Castellanos asked. Eddie watched Lucy running toward the playground, her pigtails bouncing as she rejoined her friends who were already turning the afternoon's excitement into an elaborate game of cops and robbers. "Wanted to do something that made kids smile instead of worry," he said. 3 weeks later, the story had spread throughout the community and beyond. Local news stations covered the ice cream vendor who had stopped a kidnapping, though Eddie declined most interview requests. The Marine Corps Times ran a feature about veterans finding new ways to serve their communities. a national veterans organization reached out to present Eddie with a Civilian Service Award, recognizing his quick action as an example of how military training translates to protecting American communities. Most importantly, the parents at Riverside Park looked at their cheerful ice cream man with new understanding and deeper respect. Some approached him to thank him personally, sharing stories of their own family members who had served. Others simply nodded with quiet acknowledgement when they bought ice cream, understanding now that heroes come in unexpected forms. Lucy's mother, Dr. Angela Chen, approached Eddie's truck the following Tuesday with an envelope. Inside was a drawing that Lucy had made, a stick figure in an ice cream truck uniform with a cape, labeled Super Eddie. Below it, in careful 8-year-old handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for saving me." She wants to be a Marine when she grows up, Dr. Chen told Eddie with tears in her eyes, because of you. Eddie accepted the drawing and taped it to his dashboard, right next to the photo of Janet Wells, the diplomat he hadn't been able to save. "Tell Lucy that Marines come in all shapes and sizes," he said. "Some wear uniforms, some wear ice cream truck shirts. The important thing is showing up when people need you." As the weeks passed, Eddie's routine remained largely unchanged. He still arrived at Riverside Park at 2:15 p.m., still served rocket pops and ice cream sandwiches with a smile, still remembered every child's favorite flavor. But something fundamental had shifted in how the community saw him. Parents nodded with recognition and respect when he passed. Children waved with genuine affection that went beyond the excitement of ice cream. And Eddie carried himself with a quiet satisfaction that came from knowing he had found a way to continue serving and protecting, just in a different uniform. One afternoon, a young Marine in dress blues approached the truck. "Gunnery Sergeant Lawson?" he asked formally. Eddie looked up from the freezer he was restocking. "Just Eddie now, son. What can I do for you?" The Marine handed him an envelope. "From the Commandant, sir. The Corps wanted you to know that your actions in the park represented the finest traditions of Marine service." Inside was a letter of commendation and a new medal, not for combat valor this time, but for continuing to serve and protect in civilian life. Eddie read it quietly, then looked up at the young Marine. "You know what the best part is?" Eddie said, gesturing toward the playground, where Lucy was teaching other children a game she'd invented called Marine Heroes. "I get to protect the future instead of just surviving the present." As the sun set over Riverside Park, and Eddie prepared to end another day, he reflected on the strange path that had brought him from diplomatic convoys in Baghdad to ice cream routes in suburban America. The mission had changed, but the purpose remained the same, standing between innocent people and those who would harm them. Some Marines serve in dress blues and formal ceremonies. Others serve in polo shirts and ice cream trucks, asking for nothing more than the chance to make children smile and keep them safe. Both kinds matter. Both kinds protect. And when the moment comes, both kinds remember that service is a calling that transcends uniform or setting. Now I ask you, have you ever met someone whose cheerful demeanor hid extraordinary courage? Someone who served without recognition until crisis revealed their true character? Share their story in the comments below, because at the Silent Heroes, we believe that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, sometimes even driving ice cream trucks. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please subscribe and help us honor those who serve in silence. And remember, Sometimes the guardian you're looking for is the person bringing joy to children, keeping watch while they play.